And a very good evening, afternoon, as well as morning to everyone tuning in. Very glad to be here, to be invited to just kick off I think, first of many wonderful sharings, I'm sure, for this summit. So what I will be talking about is about charity and business, as well as the strategic link between the two that can contribute to impact. I would also be sharing from a very broad perspective. I wouldn't be diving deep into a lot of areas, but just to give you a flavor of the trends that we are seeing currently, but also from a very Singaporean lens. And the examples hopefully will also lend some food for thought in terms of how you might be thinking of how you want to link charity and business within your own spheres of influence, as well as also in your own country. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. I'll begin by sharing in terms of how the social service landscape in Singapore, in a very brief way, or the challenges that they face, and what some of these are. So Singapore, contrary to some people's beliefs, I mean, sometimes when we go to different countries to share about Singapore's social challenges, people tend to ask, you mean Singapore has got social issues? Yes, we do. And right at the foremost of these social issues, our declining population and also our aging population. As you can see, by 2019, we already have 1:4.5, one young person that is 4.5 older persons. And this is actually slated to decrease even more by 2030, where we are expecting that our elderly population will hit a size of 900,000. And that would also put a strain on our caregiving, simply because by 2030, we're looking at one caregiver to two older persons. And that would actually be quite a burden on society, as well as on the population as a whole. And that leads very much into a study that we have done in the past couple of years into the caregiving space in Singapore. And because of the declining population, other exacerbated by other social issues as well, we see that caregivers are playing more of a multiple caregiving role. Maybe not only just to the elderly parents, but also perhaps to the children. By and large, the parents are caregivers of their children. And this sometimes could be made worse by, if they have to care for children with disabilities and so on and so forth. And disabilities is a very important area in Singapore as well. While Singapore does have a strong support system for persons with disabilities in the early stages of their lives, right through to the age of 18, there is a bit of a cliff effect from the age of 18 onwards, where they reach adulthood, and our aim is to try to get them to be as independent as possible. But a lot of the support mechanisms that are in place currently is still not really able to capture the large population of persons with disabilities as they transit out into adulthood. So these are also some of the key challenges that we are currently seeing in Singapore. And that really relates to, how might we improve the quality of life for adults with disabilities in Singapore. And this is a perennial issue that couples together with the aging issues that we face. And this also adds another layer of strain to the Singapore social care system. Just very quickly, we are seeing an increase of persons with disabilities, especially in the younger children, the preschoolers, and especially also in the autism spectrum disorder area. So this is something that we would have to address as they continue to grow up and have a longer term effect on the social care support system. What is more recent that we have found is that there is an earlier onset of dementia that seems to be taking place in Singapore. And even as young as in the 40s, I've heard of cases of them being in the 30s, actually getting dementia. And this is a very worrying trend, because dementia, as we all know, is not a reversible illness at this point in time until perhaps we can find a cure for that. But as long as it remains incurable and so long as it remains a detrimental long-term illness, then it is something that we really have to keep an eye on. COVID itself, as the past 2 years have shown, has also brought a toll about to society at large. Most societies are facing those issues. So in terms of the financial issues aside, we are also seeing that mental health is taking a beating as a result of COVID. In the social service sector, particularly in Singapore, we are seeing a dearth of capacity building. And that's exactly the role that I play in the National Council of Social Service. So the graph that you see, the web graph that you see, is actually a very recent study that has not been published. So you have the first sight of that, of the current organizational effectiveness scores in 2020 or 2021 to be more precise. And we can see that there is a slight growth or slight improvement from the scores in 2018, but we are still seeing it as a very, very small growth factor. Of course, being charities and being social service agencies that deliver services, social services to their clients, service quality is one of their stronger areas, together with strategy in terms of how they might be able to reach out to more people and how they might be able to grow themselves to reach out to more people. But we are seeing that fundraising continues to be a very, very critical area of need for capacity building for the social service sector. On top of that, we are also seeing the innovation and collaboration of how social services may leverage on technology, may leverage on innovation to deliver the services better. These are still areas that require a lot of improvements. And let's take HR as another example. Currently, the social service sector employs about 17,000 people to run the services, to run organizations. But we are also seeing a leakage of these talents, the lack of retention of these talents. So if you can refer to the graph that is below, is one of the studies that we have done in the people practices within the social service sector. And you can see that overall, the scores that the social service sector has in their people practices, it's still much lower than what a Singapore small medium enterprise would actually be having as well. So we are seeing all these different challenges, and one of the things is because of the way that funding is being provided to the social service agencies. A lot of people are focusing on services or the direct service provision rather than building up the charity as an organization to better deliver the services. So that's where they suffer in terms of focus, in terms of resources, and that will also affect the manpower as a result. What is exacerbated even more is the fact that, where you can see this is basically the graph of the trends that has been for the past 6 years from 2012 to 2016. And that we can see how government grants that goes to funding social services has actually been on the rise, almost like a 45-degree rise. But the other income sources that a charity might have, maybe through the means of fees, investments, and other revenue sources, are kind of straight line. Donations is a bit of up and down, but 2015 is a bit of a bumper year for Singapore because we are celebrating our 50th anniversary as well. So there's a lot more people who are willing to put in donations to support the social service sector. Very quickly, let's just move on. Let's look at how the global landscape looks like. We do see that there is a lot of focus in the ESG, in particularly on the environmental area. And this is taken from the World Economic Forum Global Risk Landscape. From 2020 to 2021, to be honest, environmental risks still rank quite high, although societal risks are coming to the fore, perhaps as a result of the COVID situation. But we do see that not all is lost on the social. There is a silver lining, especially since actually the past few years, we see the introduction of the UN 17 SDGs in 2015. We see the Singapore Stock Exchange mandating reporting of sustainability reports for the companies in 2016. We have also seen the Business Roundtable statement that came about in 2019 that transits the commitment from shareholders to stakeholders and to support more communities. We also see the World Economic Forum, the Davao Manifesto, to drive companies to measure their performance based on how they have achieved their social objectives. In Singapore, there are a number of companies that have actually done so in terms of looking more at the social. So Marina Bay Sands employs persons with disabilities. The Soup Restaurant Group, which is also a listed company, has spun off a company to employ persons with who are ex-offenders as well as persons with disabilities as well. And we're looking at a coffee company, which is a social enterprise that reaches out and helps vulnerable women, having been certified as the first Singapore B Corp in Singapore. Very quickly, I move on to the role of social enterprises because I think they form a very important part of the ecosystem. So we are looking more and more to see more and more social enterprises coming up in Singapore, and with charities also taking up the mantle of setting up social enterprises. Really, the idea is that once you have a solution for social challenges, your aim is to create surplus so that it can create greater impact. And the social enterprise is also a very key partner in the people, private and public partnerships in terms of how they might be able to drive more impact creation that is less reliant on government funding or public donations. This is just really an example of how social enterprises in Singapore have worked together with different corporates, whether it's through the integration of social enterprises in the procurement and supply chain for corporates. I've talked about the spinning off of a social enterprise subsidiary by the Soup Restaurant Group. Companies can come in very strongly in the last two areas as well, where they not only just provide funding, but provide in kind and skill sets to help charities build their capability. And last but not least, we're also seeing that there is an increase in private sector investment into social enterprises through investments and acquisition in order to further their own social impact as well. This is my last slide. I'll just very quickly end off. I just want to show you the different roles that various bodies can play. So for the government, we have recently set up the Community Capability Trust. It's a $480 million fund over 10 years to help charities build their capability. The government has also set up the RAISE Singapore, which is a body to develop social enterprises in Singapore, and the National Volunteer and Philanthropy Center to drive more volunteerism as well as philanthropy. Companies can also look at how they might, be more deliberate in terms of trying to get the foot into the impact space, whether it's to be certified as a B Corp, whether it's join different networks such as the Inclusive Business Action Network, or to just leverage off on intermediaries that can help link the corporate's skill sets to where it is most needed in the charities, either through Talent Trust or Impact. They are both social enterprises as well. Last but not least, companies can also look at how they may participate in innovative impact financing models, such as the one that Maybank has just launched, the first recyclable grant, as well as Singapore's first social impact guarantee that was set up together with two foundations. So hopefully whatever that I've shared today will just be nuggets of food for thought that will set the night and for you to take ahead in your deliberations of how you might want to design social impact together with the companies. Thank you very much.